The North remembers many things, but some things were never meant to be remembered. For thousands of years, the ancient castle of Winterfell has stood against the cold winds of the North. Its stone walls have seen kings rise and fall, wars fought and forgotten, and winters that seemed as though they would never end. Beneath its towers lies a place even older than the castle itself, the crypts. Deep beneath the ground, the stone kings of House Stark sit in silence. Each statue rests with a sword across its lap, watching the darkness as it has for centuries. Generations of Starks have been buried here, their names fading slowly into legend. But the crypts were never the deepest place beneath Winterfell. One winter night, while the snow fell silently across the castle grounds, a young maester studying the ancient records of the North discovered something strange. Among old scrolls and half-rotted maps was a fragment of parchment older than any Stark chronicle. It showed the familiar layout of the crypts, but beneath them, faint lines extended downward into unknown tunnels that were never mentioned in any record. At first, it seemed impossible. The crypts had been explored for centuries. Every passage was believed to be known. Yet the map suggested something deeper, something hidden. Driven by curiosity and perhaps a little foolish courage, the maester descended into the crypts that same night. Torchlight flickered across the long rows of stone kings as he walked deeper into the silent halls. The statues seemed almost alive in the shadows, watching, waiting. At the far end of the oldest corridor, behind one of the most ancient Stark statues, the maester noticed something unusual, a crack in the wall, barely visible. When he pressed against the stone, dust fell from the ceiling. Slowly, with a grinding sound that echoed through the crypts, part of the wall shifted inward. Behind it lay darkness, a hidden passage. The air inside the tunnel was colder than the winter night above. The stone walls were rough and uneven, nothing like the carefully carved crypts. This tunnel was far older. With a torch in hand and a northern ranger accompanying him, the maester began the descent. Step by step, they moved deeper beneath Winterfell. The tunnel twisted downward, narrowing as it went. Frost covered the walls, and water dripped slowly from the ceiling. The air smelled ancient, like stone untouched for thousands of years. Soon, the carved stone of the crypts gave way to something else entirely. Symbols appeared along the walls, strange spirals and markings carved into the rock, not the language of the first men, older. The ranger recognized the shapes immediately. Stories told by the old people of the North spoke of such markings. They belonged to the children of the forest. The deeper they traveled, the stranger the tunnels became. The passages widened into vast underground caverns. Massive roots from ancient weirwood trees broke through the ceilings and walls, twisting through the stone like veins beneath the earth. Bones lay scattered across the cavern floor. At first glance, they looked like animal remains, but as the torchlight moved across them, the explorers realized the truth. These bones were enormous, far too large for any man or even any known beast of the North. Iron chains were embedded into the stone walls nearby, thick as a man's arm and rusted with age. Something had once been held here,
or something had once been kept from escaping. Claw marks scarred the rock surfaces around the cavern. Deep grooves cut through the stone, as though some immense creature had fought violently against its prison long ago. The tunnels continued beyond the cavern, and the explorers followed. Eventually, they reached a massive circular chamber unlike anything else they had seen. The walls were carved with hundreds of glowing runes. Ancient symbols formed a complete ring around the chamber, pulsing faintly in the darkness. Above them, massive weirwood roots hung like pale serpents from the ceiling. At the center of the chamber stood something impossible, a colossal structure made of stone and roots intertwined into a cage, or perhaps a prison. Thick chains anchored the structure to the floor of the cavern. The roots of the weirwood trees wrapped around it tightly, as though nature itself was helping to hold something inside. The runes carved around the surrounding walls glowed faintly with ancient magic. The maester realized something terrifying. This prison had not been built by men alone. Before the wall existed, before the great kingdoms of Westeros, the first men and the children of the forest must have worked together to create this place. Only one question remained. What had they imprisoned here? The explorers approached the stone cage slowly. Torchlight flickered through the cracks between the roots and the ancient bars of stone. Inside, something moved. At first, it looked like a shadow, but as the light shifted, the outline became clearer. A massive shape lay trapped within the structure. Stone and roots had grown around it over the centuries, encasing parts of its body like a tomb. Yet its form was unmistakable. Gigantic claws, massive limbs, a body far larger than any giant spoken of in northern legend. Then the ground trembled, just slightly. Dust fell from the cavern ceiling. The glowing runes flickered. For thousands of years, the magic that sealed this chamber had remained untouched. But now, something had disturbed it. The explorers stepped back. A deep cracking sound echoed through the cavern. A fracture appeared across the surface of the stone prison. The chains rattled violently. The weirwood roots tightened around the cage, as though the ancient trees themselves were trying to hold the creature in place. Then the explorers saw it. Beneath the stone surface, something shifted. Slowly, deliberately, as if something inside had just taken its first breath in centuries. The maester whispered a single word: "Run." They fled through the tunnels as the cavern shook around them. Stones fell from the ceilings, and cracks spread along the ancient passages. Torchlight flickered wildly as they climbed back toward the crypts. Behind them, something enormous moved deep beneath the earth. When they finally emerged into the stark crypts, the trembling stopped. The statues of the old kings remained silent, unmoving, as though nothing had happened at all. The explorers sealed the hidden passage once more. Some secrets, they believed, should remain buried forever. But far below Winterfell, deep beneath the ancient roots of the weirwood trees, the stone prison continues to crack, and in the darkness beneath the north, something very old is beginning to wake.